David went through all kinds of matters, and he found himself here because when we pay attention to David's situation, he had so many different kind of battles. You see, when you engage in your purpose, accept that you might be a private enemy to someone who you don't have a personal relationship with. Goliath, it was his first one we hear him dealing with when he comes on the scene. And we understand that the Goliath was Saul's giant, but David's foe. So when he's writing this particular text, 1 Samuel 17 through 8, and the 18th chapter gives us some instances, perhaps that leads us into a set of instances that perhaps could have been this reason why he was crying. Some say, why was David crying? Yeah. David volunteered for a fight, and King Saul was not initially convinced that David could handle Goliath. So Saul wanted David to prove that he could handle the fight. So he tried to dress him in his clothing. Of course, he was head and shoulders above all men. He was taller than everybody that was basically of his particular nation. They looked at him and saw and revered him because he was a good-looking man, and he was willing to hope for a victory, but he was hoping in a distance. He said, you go fight Goliath, and I'm gonna be back here cheering you on. Let me just stop there for a few minutes, because some of you are fighting some fights that, listen here, that you have to fight, but listen, the one that really should be fighting is really not fighting at all. They're back there saying, go get them. And you got to be careful when you get out and send into a fight. You got to make sure that's really your fight. Come on, somebody here talking to you and say, you got to make sure that's really your fight. Yeah. Here's David here. He's out here getting ready to handle this fight, and understand here. So he put him in a unique posture and put him there where he had to go through it. And David's response was to Saul, you must not know my history. I slew a lion and I slew a bear. He talked about this. He said, see, your supporting cast, even if you tell them what you're able to do, often only become your spectators. Understand, real discouragers will always murmur and mock. Let me say that again. Real discouragers will always murmur and mock. That's why no matter how big your ministry is, how big your situation is, you always have some people who are in the background murmuring and mocking. Because if there's any discouragers in the house, they will never be out front generally with what they have to say. They always pickpockets. They pickpockets. They take literally what should not belong to them out of the hearts of people who should have it, and put in and leave them empty of the resource that they should have to make them be able to be in conductive cohesiveness with what is going on in your atmosphere. Isn't it interesting that some people are mad at you and don't know why they're mad at you? Or some people don't like you, they don't even know why they don't like you. Some people look at you and they've already predetermined that there's something about you that they don't agree with. Sometimes people have ideas about you based upon things that's happened in their past, and sometimes they've been told or spoken things to them that perhaps give them an opinion that have nothing to do with your reality. Specifically not your specific individual reality with each other. You see, the discouragers will always murmur and mock, but encouragers will watch sometime. Listen, this is interesting here, because what I've watched, encouragers sometimes will push you on, but will watch to see if you survive. Now y'all act like I'm saying something strange. You haven't had no back. Say, go on, I'm gonna be with you. Go on now. I got your back. Go on. Yeah. Don't worry about a thing, because I'm right here behind you. Yeah. As soon as you get in your deepest trouble, you're like, hey. I thought you said. Oh, don't play like you haven't had to pick up the phone and I thought you had my back. And you have to understand, sometimes you have to even look for some of those who would encourage you. But God will not give you a victory until you at least try to go forward. Once you win, your cheers will make enemies for you. Faithfulness merits more than elevation. It merits results. This is why when you have a promise, you got to head toward God's promise. regardless of whoever decides to go with you. Somebody here help me. Just say, this is David saying, I'm crying over this situation. Why was he saying that? I waited patiently on the Lord, and he inclined unto me, heard my cry. This open response summarized his testimony. He was basically saying, I remember my deliverance. Can anybody here remember your deliverance? Don't forget the places you got delivered in. Because you need to remember your deliverance. Say that to somebody. You got to remember your deliverance. David had several enemies in many situations that he had to learn to trust God through and to wait for God to deliver him out of them. I just mentioned Goliath because he just happened to be the first one we saw that came on the scene. In reality, that relationship was symbolic for us because Goliath symbolizes that we'll always have some adversaries that are both overrated and over-advertised. You're always going to have some situations that look bigger than life to you. And if waiting is processed without promotion, how do I learn to survive attacks while God says I have to remain stationary? This teaches us some very important lessons about navigating successfully through our waiting process. First of all, you have to focus on who you are and who you represent in every fight you have. Let me say it like this. You see, Goliath will unapologetically represent his kingdom, and you will have to relentlessly represent yours too. Goliath is a champion for his cause. He believes his fights are winnable, and he approaches them expecting to win them. Goliath fights a corporate battle because he's a master of strategy and intimidation. Understand, therefore, he uses community connections and to amass a collective of small victories to establish victorious public record so that at the end of the day, you don't have a chance when you go against him. You have to understand then who you are because you have also an arrayment of publicity that you don't know you have. That's right. Hebrews 12:1 says, wherefore we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. He says that those prophets that went on before us, everybody who was in relationship with God before us, are witnesses that listen, that God's got your back and he's got a bigger crowd around along with the angels who are innumerable, who are working on your behalf without you knowing how well God's already got you covered. Let me just stop there for a minute because somebody's got some situations this week and you need to be covered in it. Look at somebody and just tell them God's got you covered. Yeah. Yeah, the essence of understanding that, when you know your battle with Goliath, it can make you upset to have to go through this kind of situation. But understand this about most of the Goliaths you deal with in life that you go through. Understand that Goliath sometimes will taunt and threaten your future methodically to gain control over your present security and standing. But Goliath does not want to kill you as much as he wants to control your future. You see, he needs you to be able and alive so you can serve in the future. You make his future vast and vibrant. Y'all gonna wake up in a few minutes and get what I'm talking about. You see, he's looking for indentured slaves. You're not understand what I mean. I mean for agreeable, cooperating participants who will trade off their future for a moment of present opportunity and pleasure. Those who will sell out each other for an opportunity to be the first one in the line. It's important that you understand that your cause is to make sure that you cover what God wants you to do. He's the one that really will promote you without you ever having to promote yourself. Somebody just talk to your neighbor and say, let God lift you up. Let God lift you up. To do this, that means you have to learn how to fight in the dark. Somebody here talk to your neighbor and say, you got to learn how to fight in the dark. Yeah. I know y'all think I'm crazy, but it's early in the morning, so I got to get y'all in the room here so we can kind of have some talk about this in just a few more minutes. By faith, you learn how to maneuver in places you don't readily see. He really doesn't understand this. Your adversaries generally don't want a skilled fight. They're just seeking to control the turf. The challenge of most situations you work under, understand in the instance of this, and all of us have to work under until we work for, and then until we become the bosses of. When we understand the whole process, then we understand that being the boss of also makes you the first servant to the lowest one. Being exalted means that you ought to be humble. Say that to somebody. Being exalted means humble, yeah. The last person who should be in a position of thinking that they should not be humble is a person who's been blessed the most. So when God turns around and blesses us, it becomes our obligation to show how well we're grateful because God has blessed us so. Look at somebody and say, look at you and say, I know he blessed you. I'm looking at you, yeah. Go on, tell them, I know you had some stuff, but I know you're blessed. Go on, tell them, I know you had some stuff. You got some stuff off in the cut, but you know, but he's blessing you. He's doing some stuff for you. You got some situation you're not telling all of us. That's all right. That's all right. You can look real solemn and real, you know, like, oh, I'm just so glad to be here today. Let me just tell you, the real deal is, you know, I know God's blessing you, and he's blessing you all the time, and he's making ways for you all the time. And the only reason why you had that smile on your face right now, because you know I'm telling the truth. So don't have any shame about it. Look at your neighbor and tell them, I'm blessed and I know it. Go on. Listen, don't be acting all timid on that. If you know God has blessed you, my God, there's something on the inside of you should say, listen, I am aware that God made me a promise, and I am also aware that my promises are always coming true. That every time I need him, a provision shows up. Every time I want something, a provision shows up. I got some stuff I didn't even ask for. No. So, come on, some of y'all can talk in here. Come on, tell the truth. I got some things I didn't even ask for. God made some ways for me that if I put my hand on it and say how it happened, I have to throw my hands back up and say, I don't know. He just keeps making a way out of no way. And this is why every time I get a chance to praise him, I ain't holding back. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep on pressing because all I can say is this is the Lord's doing. Somebody ought to help me just talk to your neighbor and say, it's the Lord's doing. And it's marvelous.